Hello everyone and welcome back to Painting with Martin. Today you were actually looking at the Demolitionist from Jaws of the Lion, Gloomhaven. That model is what we're going to be looking at today. It is a very detailed model, it's very small, it has lots of colors, and it's arguably one of the most difficult models I've ever painted. But I'm going to try and give you a step-by-step view of how to paint it. And so stay with me. Also, I have to mention that I have a little bit of a cold, so I came down with a high temperature last night, and I'm not feeling that great. But so if you hear me coughing, it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just me. So with that said, I'm going to be looking at this model, and we're actually going to start with the skin details. For the skin details, I'm going to be using a Citadel color called Zandri Dust. I'm going to thin this paint with a little bit of water, and I'm going to be painting all the skin areas here, the face, so the chest, the face, parts of the back, parts of the upper arm and both of the arms here, as well as the feet on both sides as well as front as well. I'm also going to be painting the rocket launchers on both sides with this one, but don't worry, we're actually going to tone them up with some gold later on. So thin your paint with about 50-50 water and we will get started. It's a fairly difficult model to paint, as I said, so the trick here is to take it step by step, and don't be too alarmed if you cover too many details with, you know, the wrong paint or anything. This is a fairly nice color, so make sure that you cover the face. If you cover the headbands or the, you know, kind of like the music boombox or whatever, like headphones here, don't worry about it. We'll cover it up later as well. And going on here to the rocket launchers here on the side. And by thinning the paint, you're actually not obscuring any details, and you want to make sure that those details are kept as much as possible, simply because this is what makes this model so beautiful. And as you can see in the card art, it's actually one of the more unique pictures. You have the Red Guard, which I painted before, and the Void Warden. They're also beautiful, but this one is even more special. Has a little text here on the rocket launcher saying bye, which is like really nice and like funny. I'll see if I can get that done on when I paint that as well. Moving on here to the back. So don't worry if you cover over some areas where you're not supposed to, because you can tone it up later on. And for the arm here, same, Zandri Dust, thinned with about 50-50 water, so it's a very, very fluid paint here. It's designed to be like that, so you can actually make sure that all the details are not covered. So with this one, it's almost done. And the front as well, don't forget the front of these rocket launchers. And it's a bit hard to see. I'm trying to zoom in as much without bumping into the camera, which I have a habit of doing. I apologize for that. I'll probably do that many times over the course of this video, but I'm trying here, so you can see that everyone can actually get into painting without actually having painted before. It's quite easy. So with this one here, and this one on the front, and of course also this one here on the back. If you see that you made a mistake on the way, just touch it up and you'll be ready to go. And there we have it. When it comes to the headband, I've used a 50-50 mix of Citadel's Mephiston Red as well as Citadel's Empress Children, which is a pink color. And I mixed them in here on the palette, and I'm going to try and get it sorted out together. I'm taking off my glasses because I can see a little bit better. And it's fairly small here, and make sure that you cover the headband here. I'll try to see if I can get it up in focus for you like this, as well as the front here. This paint I'm using undiluted because there's not that much detail I'm obscuring here. You can of course thin the paint if you want to. I've chosen not to do it here, makes it a little bit quicker to paint. And of course the front one as well. Taking great care, if possible, not to paint the face. I'm also not painting the middle here because this one has been covered by some kind of band, which we want in another color, just to give it a little bit more contrast. Okay. When it comes to the shoulder pads, they're going to be in two different colors. The first one to the left, we're going to paint in Averland Sunset from Citadel, and the right one we're going to paint with Wild Rider Red from Citadel as well. So go up and shake up those colors. We'll mix them with a little bit of water because they have details, and we're ready to go for the shoulder pads. So here you have the Averland Sunset. One layer is usually fine like this. Like this. I'm going to clean my brush. Make sure you do so after every single time so you don't mix in the colors too much. And then we have Wild Rider Red, which is a very vibrant color. I really like it. I'm going to use it undiluted here because I have thinned my paint already a little bit with some water on my brush. Something like this. And there you have it. It's starting to look a little bit better. And we're going to now go on to the pants. The pants are going to be painting in another color. Let me see if I can close this box of paint, or this jar. And it's going to be in another Citadel color called Naggaroth Night, which is very vibrant purple color. Stay with me. I'll change my brush, and I won't change my brush, but I will open this lid so it won't pour all over. As you can see here, it's looking quite okay. Quite okay. So we've got Naggaroth Night here, one of my favorite colors when it comes to purple colors, and we're going to be putting it on the pants here, taking care here not to touch parts of the shoulder armor here in the front. Not shoulder armor, sorry, knee armor, because that's going to be painting in another color, and we don't want to obscure that by painting it with this purple color. Even though it's quite difficult, this model to paint, I find it one of the most interesting models I've ever painted, because it has so many small details, and I love details. Making sure we cover the other side here as well. My apologies for not being able to zoom in the camera more. I've got a cheap mobile phone, and maybe I'll be able to get a better one once the channel grows. So if you like this channel, like what I'm doing, don't hesitate to actually subscribe and like the channel, and share my videos if you think that you can learn something from it, or if you just like what I'm doing. And I would really appreciate that. And with that said, we're coming back here on the back. And a little bit here on the other side here. It's a little bit fiddly to get to, but you can do it with a decent size brush. It may be required to paint this one in maybe 2 layers. So after it's properly dried, you can put on a second layer. And I usually say this in most of my videos, this won't win you any competitions, but it will make your figures stand out a little bit on the table. And if you're good with that, then this channel might be for you. And I've been painting for about, give or take, 6-7 years. I've been painting a few models on another board game channel called Board Games with Neramus, one of the best channels I know. If you want to see me painting, say, the Mars rover for Terraform Mars, the board game, you can go to his channel. There will be a link in the description box below, and you can check it out. It will give you a full description and guided tour of how to do so. He also does lots of run-throughs and really nice, cool things. So check out Board Games with Neramus if you have got the time. He's a good friend of mine. His name is Joseph, and he has a little pet dragon called Draco. Now, normally I paint the entire miniature first and do shades afterwards, but I'm going to foresee this one just once, and I want to put some shades on the skin part and the armor parts here first, so we can actually get those details out. And before going further, and I'm going to use a wash or a shade called Sepia shade from Game Wash, which is Vallejo, one of the good ones. I really like it. And I'm going to put it undiluted on my brush, and I'm going to put it all across my anything where I painted with like the Zandri Dust before. And I'm taking great care not to actually covering over any of the other areas of paint that I've actually done before. I'm letting it pool in the recesses, like you should. If you've been following me, you will see that. And we can continue painting the model. You don't have to wait. But you will see here that you will actually make sure that it's going to be a lot easier to paint these areas with all these details afterwards. After you can actually see the details that has been highlighted up in a way with the wash or the shade. Some people prefer to call it a wash, some people prefer to call it shade. I was taught that it's going to be a shade, a wash, and then that's why I'm using it in between, like either shade or wash, but it's technically the same. And as you can see here, the details are beautiful. Something like this. Making sure that you also touch up the feet here. And everything that's been painted with Zandri Dust gets covered with this sepia shade. You could use Naggaroth Earth shade as well, but it's a little bit darker. That's from Citadel, or any other brown wash. But this one is kind of like has another tint, and I like it. So there you have it. Hopefully you can see this. There you go. And while this one is drying, we're actually going to be painting parts of the sash here, and we're going to be painting it with a Macragge Blue from Citadel. And then we're going to go on, after that, we're going to go on and paint the belt areas and belt buckles, as well as the headband, but one thing at a time. So Macragge Blue is a very very dark blue color. In this model it will make the sash stand out, which I like. I'm applying this one undiluted, or about 25% diluted, to be honest. Hopefully I'm getting this right. There's a lot of details here, and if you feel that I'm making a critical mistake, that I'm painting something that it definitely shouldn't be this color, just let me know. I'm trying to learn here as well, and if I can learn from this while painting, then I'm really happy. Anything I can do to become a better painter through the community, then that's great. So that's what it looks like. You might want to put 1 or 2 layers here. With this one done, you close the hatch of the Macragge Blue bottle, and then you move on to a new color which I forgot to mention, which is also from Citadel, called Light Ochre, or Ochre. Hope I pronounced that right. And I'm going to paint the other part of the sash, which is here, for this one as well. Make sure that you give the paint bottle a little bit of a shake. Sometimes, especially if you've been leaving it in the bottle for a long time, the pigments sink to the bottom, and you don't want that. You want it out on your brush. And Light Ochre looks like this. Okay, it's very thin. There you go. And then I will also do, when I send this, I'm going to paint the headbands here. The headbands I'm going to touch up with some Wild Rider Red. Neat. So for the Wild Rider Red, as I said before, try to cover this one. You can see it stands out quite nicely. You might want to turn it around a little bit to get to reach. And holding your hands close to the bristles give you control, and you won't be able to shake your hands and get the paint where it's not supposed to be. As you can see here, I missed a little bit part of the original headband mix, so I'm going to see if I can touch it up, and I will do so a little bit later. With this said, I'm now going to put in some Troll Slayer Orange. I'm going to show the paint jar a little bit over here to the side, and also for the belt part, I'm going to use a neutral grey on the front and the sides, front and the back, from Citadel. From Vallejo. So neutral grey from Vallejo for parts of the belt. If you have any other colour that you want to use, feel free to do so. If you look at the card art of the belt, it shows a few colours, but neutral grey is kind of like a color that you can use as kind of like a go-to color if you don't know what to use. And a little bit here as well as a little bit on the back. something like that. Now, I realize I don't have Troll Slayer Orange, but I do actually have something called Jokarero Orange from Vallejo, and it's perfectly fine. If you want closer to the Troll Slayer Orange, you can mix in a little bit of Fire Dragon Bright, I believe it's called. But this one is fine, and you can highlight it up later on instead. And make sure you shake the bottle. I just want it to look a little bit different here on the sides. There we go. You can see it there, just in there, right. So with that said, I'm now going to be looking at, I missed one thing here with Mephiston Red. It's part of the rocket launcher, which I'm going to be touching up right now. With so many details, it's really easy to miss. So with Mephiston Red from Citadel, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to change my brush to a smaller one, which is a size 0, to give me a little bit of control when I'm painting. There we go, and I can do the same for parts of this, a little bit on the side here, a little bit also for the other side. And with that said, right now I'm going to be looking at painting the armor, the greaves, rocket launchers, and the color I'm going to be using is something you've used before, is Citadel's Retributor Armor. It's a gold color, really good. I really like it. So that's the next step. So you can use it undiluted or diluted. Either way, I'm using it undiluted here because I want to quicken things up a little bit. And make sure you don't touch up what we just painted. You can use a larger brush for this one as well if you want to. I'm using a smaller one because I want to make sure that my shaky hands don't interfere with what you're seeing. And maybe I'll switch to the larger brush as well. Otherwise, I think you're getting a bright idea of what we're doing here. And then we're moving on to the boots here. And oops, so got a little bit carried away there. And if you feel that you've covered up too much here of the boots, don't worry, we're going to be painting the fires here from the rocket boots in a bit. So don't worry about it, we can fix that later on. Alright, that's the way it looks right now. Next, we're going to be touching up the knee pads armor here. And the color we'll be using is something called Citadel's Sybarite Green, and it will really make them stand out. But before that, because we're going to leave the armor to dry, the gold to dry a little bit, so we don't mix them in too much. We're going to look at a little bit on the front part here and the back. Well, actually, it's the back, and we're going to paint the kind of like the straps here on the back with a color called Rhinox Hide. Let me see if I have it. It's from Citadel. It's this one. For the red parts of the kind of like dynamite, I'm using Mephiston Red from Citadel. As well as a few details here and there. And for the belt buckle, I'm going to use Retributor Armor. And then I'm finally going to go on for Sybarite Green for the knee armor. Something like this. Now for the Sybarite Green. Really brings out this model with this color, I believe. Alright, that's more or less the base colors of this beautiful model. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to paint the eyes completely black using either Abaddon black from Citadel if you have it, or pure black from Vallejo. And then we're going to paint the kind of like the stones of the rocket launcher pure white on top of it, and also on the side. So this is got the pure white. Just a few dots. And you can do that on for these ones as well if you want to. Don't forget the ones under it. Something like this. The left hand rocket launcher is not really seen in the card art, so I'm not going to paint that. But I am going to now switch to the black of the eye, of the pupils, or the eyes actually. and I'm using a special one for this one called Glossy Black from Vallejo. Can be a bit tricky, so bear with me. I think I got it quite okay. Something like this. And with that one done, if there's anything white showing that you can touch up, you can either touch it up through either some Mephiston Red or some neutral grey. I'm going to touch it up here with some neutral grey. And then we also have a small detail of Macragge Blue here on the center, as well as we're going to do some dots on the headband. For the dots, we're going to use a color called Flash Gitz Yellow from Citadel. That's a really cool name. And we're using a very small brush for this one. Just doing some dots here, doesn't have to be perfect. It's a very subtle, but I think it's very beautiful because the card art here is just amazing. Something like this. We're going to do the same thing for the pants. And for the pants, we're going to use a Citadel color called Macragge Blue. If Macragge Blue is not showing, which it doesn't do here, you can switch to another color, either Lothern Blue or Deep Sky Blue from Vallejo. My apologies, Lothern Blue is from Citadel. Very subtle. Something like that. For the kind of little heart symbol here, we're going to use Wild Rider Red, and for the little other heart, we're going to use Flash Gitz Yellow on the other shoulder pad. Something like this. And for another one, this is Wild Rider Red. Something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Macragge Blue for the small band on the frontal armor piece, as well as Sybarite Green for the stone in the belt buckle. The point here is to draw small lines centering on the piece on the where you think the heart is going to be, something like this, with a small dot where the heart is going to be. Then it will look something like this. You can see it upright and close. Now we're going to paint the jewels on the rocket launchers, and of course the Sybarite Green for the belt buckle, which I forgot. Here we got Sybarite Green. And that's also the same color we can use for these one. That's why we painted them white before, because that means it will stand out a lot more. Don't forget the other rocket launcher, like this. We're going to paint it on the other side as well. And don't forget this one. For the other colors of the rocket launcher, we can use a green or red. I'm going to paint them red with Wild Rider Red on one of them, and then I'm going to choose another color. And the other color I'm going to choose is for Macragge Blue for the kind of the rocket launcher part here. It's entirely optional to do this. It's just small dots. I think it can really stand out. And for the other sides here, and the other small dots for details, I'm going to be using Genestealer Purple for the tiny details on the rocket launcher, as well as trying to paint by on this one as well with the same color. Let's see if I can be able to do that. We'll start with a Y because it's easiest. Oh, doesn't really go that well, but if you can just get some purple in there, that also works fine. And for these white ones that I painted before and I forgot, I'm going to paint them Wild Rider Red as well. something like this. That concludes most of this model, and the only thing we've got left is to paint the base here. And the base is going to be kind of like a fire one, and I'm going to start by painting it, the entire one, with something called Flash Gets Yellow from Citadel. And I'm covering the entire base here. It's quite a fluid colour, so you don't need to dilute it. And in between as well, don't forget that. Then when I've done that, I'm going to take a color called Orange Fire from Vallejo. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it because it's quite fluid, because it's quite thick, sorry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something called wet blending. It means that I mix it in almost when it hasn't had time to dry. And you can actually mix it in immediately, taking a bit of a wet paint brush, and mix it around. That means sometimes it flows a little bit, you just need to soak it up. And wet blending allows the colors to blend in a natural way, because a fire doesn't really have a constant color. And by doing so, you can also add a little bit of Mephiston Red. And also add this with a wet brush, adding it something like this, and then mixing it in where you see it's fit. If you think it's too much, you'll go back a stage, like I've done here, and you go back a stage to Orange Fire and blend it in. There are probably others who will show you how to paint fire effects much better. And this is the way I do it. And once this is dry, you can even add a little bit of, if you want to, you can add Nuln Oil from Citadel or Black Wash from Vallejo to add a little bit of more color variation. You can also paint the base the way you see fit. Otherwise, this concludes the Demolitionist from Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. If you like this video, please don't hesitate to like, share and subscribe. Otherwise, go and put some paint on those brushes, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching and staying with me so far.